Hi, I'm Keri and I'm from Dorset, vegetarian and vegan caterers based in Poole. And today I'm going to do some watercress recipes for you, and they're all going to be suitable for Christmas or Boxing Day or around that sort of festive time of year. So first of all, I'm going to do a charcoal profiterole with a watercress and cream cheese filling. So the first thing we're going to do is make our choux pastry. Now, adding the charcoal into it doesn't make too much difference to the pastry, so you can just make it in the normal way which you would for any type of profiteroles or choux buns, and you just add in a bit of charcoal. So here we've got 75 millilitres of water, which I'm just going to put into this pan. We've got 40 grams of butter. And then into there I'm just going to add a pinch of salt. So I've added my butter, my water and a pinch of salt to the saucepan, and now we're going to bring it to a boil and just make sure the butter's all melted. So here we've got 45 grams of plain flour. To that I'm going to add 3 grams of activated charcoal. Now this is available to buy online. I'll show you what it looks like. This is activated charcoal powder. You can get it from Amazon. It's really good for adding an interesting new ingredient to a recipe you already do, and it's an interesting colour as well. So I'm going to add that in. Now you don't have to sieve this, as long as you give it a good whisk or run through it with a fork, that should get rid of most of the lumps. Just want to make sure all the charcoal is mixed in evenly with the flour, otherwise you might end up with streaks when you come to make your pastry. Okay, so now your butter's all melted, you want to take your pan off the heat. Add in all of your flour at once, otherwise you might end up with lumps. You don't want to pour it in gradually or anything like that, so straight in. And then just use a spatula or a wooden spoon to combine it together. Just make sure it's thoroughly combined and there's no bits of unincorporated flour lurking anywhere. So you can see you've got a lovely shiny, very dark coloured dough from the charcoal. And now you're going to return that to the heat, and it just needs to be cooked to cook the flour out. So you're going to cook it for between 2 and 5 minutes. There's a couple of little tricks to tell when it's ready to go. So you need to keep working it as you're cooking it, just to make sure it doesn't stick or get burnt on the bottom. And what you're looking for is for the dough to come cleanly away from the sides. Also, you can usually see when the oil droplets start to be visible on the surface. That's a good sign that it's ready to go. It's a bit more tricky when it's this dark colour. But if you've made choux pastry before, you do start to get a feel for when it's ready to go. Okay, now this has firmed up a little bit and it feels like it's ready to go to me. So what I'm going to do now is just put it into this mixer, because we're going to add eggs to it, but we need it to cool down before we can add the eggs, otherwise it will cook them and they'll be like scrambled eggs and they won't mix in properly. Just going to get all the dough in here. And we use the paddle attachment. If you don't have a stand mixer, you could use like a hand mixer with a whisk attachment on it, but it is quite tough on the dough to use a whisk, so it is preferable to do it this way. Okay, so I'm just going to put this on like a medium to high speed. You want to keep it moving until it's cooled down a bit, because if you leave it to sit there, it'll end up with a skin and you'll get a lumpy dough. So if you made choux pastry before, you might see a difference when you're mixing this in particular because of the charcoal. So it doesn't look particularly smooth when it's in the mixer going around, but when you put the eggs in, it will come together and it will create a smooth batter, so don't worry. So now what I'm going to do is add the eggs. I've got 2 eggs here beaten. I may not add all of them. It's probably between 1.5 and 2 eggs that you want to put in here. So I don't want it to be too runny, otherwise it won't keep its shape in the oven. So I'm just going to add this on a low speed. Just slowly add the egg. It's important that you don't add too much egg straight away, because you must never add raw flour to a mix like this. If you were to add too much liquid, you would basically have to start all over again. So once your eggs are all incorporated, you should have a nice, smooth, glossy pastry dough mix like that. This should be enough to make about 14 to 16 profiteroles. We're making them quite small because they're going to be canapés, so you want them to be bite size. So I'm just going to put these in the bag. If you don't have any piping bags, you could do this with a teaspoon. You just might not get quite as perfect a round shape. So we want to pipe in as smooth a way as we can, because that means the shape is going to be a little bit more uniform. They are going to be a little bit lumpy and bumpy because I wouldn't expect them to be perfect. Okay, now the next thing you want to do, just to smooth them over a bit, is get a bit of water, just wet your finger, just smooth out the little peaks on top. These are going to go into a preheated oven at 190 degrees. Now it's really, really, really important that you do not open that oven for at least 20 minutes, because if you open it too soon, all that steam is going to escape and it means the profiteroles are going to drop. So you need to give them a good cook in there for 20 minutes before you even really look at them. Okay, so next we're going to make the filling for our charcoal profiteroles. So we're going to do a cream cheese filling with some horseradish, a little bit of lemon zest and some chopped watercress. So you don't want too much lemon zest in here because it could be quite overpowering. It's really just less than a teaspoon. Watercress, I like to use the stalks and the leaves all chopped up together because I think you get a bit more texture and the flavours have a bit more, the stalks have a bit more crunch to them. That's about 20 grams. Then I find with the horseradish, if you're making anything like this with watercress in it, adding a tiny bit of horseradish really helps to bring out the peppery flavour of the watercress, and then just mix it all together. It's often easier if you want to take the cream cheese out of the fridge a little bit before, it makes it slightly easier to mix everything together. So I'm just going to taste it and check whether it needs a bit more lemon or maybe slightly more horseradish. So our profiteroles, they've been in for 20 minutes and then you need to take them out and let them cool down before you do anything else. Now they may need slightly longer than 20 minutes, but it's all going to be dependent on how big you've piped them. And if you like them a bit drier and more crispy, you want to leave them in longer, and vice versa. If you like them a little bit soft in the middle, you want to take them out just before. But really 20 minutes is probably about the minimum so that they don't collapse when they come out. So now what I'm going to do is take a sharp serrated knife, just cut them in half crossways. At this stage, you could keep these probably for one day maximum, but as soon as they're filled, you really do want to serve them straight away because the filling is going to make them soggy over time. So in here, I've got a piping bag filled with my cream cheese filling, but you don't have to do that. You could again use a spoon to fill them. You can be quite generous with the filling because it gives them a nice height as well as obviously tasting lovely and creamy. And the whiteness of the cheese contrasts quite nicely with the dark colour of the charcoal pastry. And there you go, that's how you make charcoal profiteroles with a cream cheese and watercress filling.